Hello, LinkedIn, and welcome back to another Tribal Impact LinkedIn Live. And for anyone listening on the podcast afterwards, you're very welcome. We've got such a great conversation lined up today, and I've known Sandy for quite a while. I can't remember how many years. How do I know
It's
you,
going
Sandy?
back 2016, 2017.
It is a
I
while,
would
isn't
think.
it? Yeah.
We had
So
that common Hitachi tie, I believe it
that's
was.
it.
Yeah.
That's it, isn't it? It's the Hitachi connection that we had. So Sandy Adam works for Quest Software. She is the senior advisor for sales enablement. And today we're talking about scaling social selling in the IT industry. And I think for anyone watching or listening to this, the IT industry are one of the forefront verticals of social selling. They're one of the first to adopt it. They've been through lots of different iterations of it. It's a great industry to look to as best in class. And I know Sandy has been leading this program in various forms over the years, and we're going to have this conversation today. So I'm really excited. Apart from that, it's good to have a chat with you, Sandy.
Absolutely.
Do you just want to give us an intro to your background? We've mentioned Hitachi and Quest. Just let's
Yeah.
start with that. Tell us a little bit
Sure.
about you.
Something people don't know about me is I started my career in as a technical person, an electronics technician, and then I moved into doing some IT and IT admin, and then transitioned into marketing, and then fell in love with social. And back in 2011, got my first role as a director of social media for a software company. And that was great times. Started introducing what we now call social selling and employee advocacy. We didn't have those words back then, but really understanding that my team of very highly educated subject matter experts should be out on social promoting their brand and meeting with customers and trying to build those relationships. So now I'm at Quest. I've landed at Quest Software. I've been here almost 4 years now. The two major programs that I run are the LinkedIn Sales Navigator program, and Sociable is our employee advocacy tool of choice. So very heavily invested in working one-on-one with all the teams. We have about 900 sellers. So I do a lot of other training, of course. Yeah. There's a lot of training that goes into it. It's not like, here's your tool and have fun.
Yeah. And we're going to touch on that because quite often there is that, here's your tool, off you go. But actually, what you've built is much bigger than that. Hi, David. Welcome. David Perry's on. So give us a comment. Just give us a wave in the comments. And if you want to ask any questions as we go through, as always, this is the time to do it. Now, I have a list of questions for Sandy because I'm quite curious and nosy. So I shall be asking questions that people ask me. But if you've got your own questions, please put them forward. You've got quite a big program, haven't you? Nearly 1,000 folks on that. That's scaling is an important one. But I'm going to start with the basics. Okay. Can you define social selling?
Well, sure. I mean, in its basic form, it's a sales strategy, right? You're just using social media platforms and networks to engage with potential customers, build those relationships. Build relationships is a funny term. I'm going to pause right there because, reps will come to me and they'll be like, well, I don't want to be their best friend and go out to coffee and, meet their wife and all. And I'm like, no, that's not the building relationships we're talking about. But really, ultimately, the goal of social selling is to help them drive sales instead of, relying on cold calling and cold emailing. It's just a really great way to connect with your prospects in a more personalized and authentic way. So that's my definition of selling.
I'm already going.
You're already what?
I'm already going off script because I wanted to ask you something there. Okay. Another one I've heard. I haven't heard that one. I don't want to build relationships. But what about I know everyone? I don't need to connect with anyone new. I know all the relationships I need to be.
That's an interesting comment. I've seldom heard that. I really seldom have heard that. Maybe from the more seasoned sales reps, who are in a very specific industry and they're very already networked into that industry. But those are few and far between.
I've heard that. I heard that 2 weeks ago. So I thought
Really?
I'd get your answer onto that. So,
I don't know everybody. There's 1 billion people on LinkedIn alone and 8 billion in the world. How can you know everybody?
well, and also there's a really good report from LinkedIn. It's a little bit old now, but it talked about, when they started talking about multi-threading within companies, and
Mhm.
it talked about the tenure of C-suite staff. C-suite decision makers is about 2.5 years. The attrition rate of salespeople in the IT industry is one of the highest. It's over 30%. It's crazy. People leaving roles. Now, when you overlay both of those things that just keep changing,
Mhm.
knowing one person is not enough, not in modern selling world.
No, I mean,
So,
when I've purchased a product, and I tell this story in my training too. Um, when I get a cold call, if I pick up the phone, or if I'm intrigued in a private message on LinkedIn, and it I forgot where I was going with that. But basically, it's there's more than one person involved in any deal, right? And so, just knowing one person or even two isn't going to get you anywhere these days. Well, I think the latest stats we saw for the IT industry are about anywhere from 16 to 18 people at an organization are involved in that decision. So
mm,
that's where I do love that term multi-threading, although it's only recently introduced, really.
mm,
But that is the premise. You need to know more than one person. Somebody can go dark at any moment. That C-suite that you've been working on, that relationships, gets a really great job somewhere else, and now you're starting at square one. So building those
yeah,
relationships is not about making friends, but it's about
yeah,
knowing the right people and being able to have the right conversations. That makes
yeah.
sense?
Right people,
Yeah.
right conversations. So actually, what about, because you're in sales enablement
Mhm.
and you're working with sales and marketing, there's lots of different teams, departments. How does that work at Quest Software?
I multi-thread into my own organization, right?
Good answer.
Yeah. I do. I want to. I have a friend in IT or CRM when I need help. I have
Yeah.
people in marketing. Um, yeah, I multi-thread into my own organization to build my relationships within it to help move my programs along. And a good example of that right now is uh, with the employee advocacy program that I run, that's dedicated for sellers. Uh, One of the channel directors reached out to me and said, "Whoa, could we get partners in here?" Yes, we could. So let's think about that as a strategy. Now I'm going to go over to marketing, whoever's handling the partner programs, and I'm going to start having those conversations. So, yeah, I
Mm.
mean, you just have to multi-thread in your own organization to make the right relationships.
I love that, Sandy, because I think some of the best programs, especially we've got channel partner organization, and I think in the IT sector, this is critical.
Mhm.
But a lot of partners don't have the brand weight that the vendor brand has.
Yep.
So putting partner content into the platform is a great way for the brand to get behind their channel. And the channel partners love that. But also inviting partners to be part of that program, it helps
Mhm.
them amplify and be part of the bigger message. There's just so many things that you can do around partner advocacy. It's an untouched area. I think there's so much more that could be done there. So,
Yep. I agree.
yeah, so we got our first question in. I haven't read it yet, David. What are the biggest challenges your IT professionals faced when implementing their social selling strategy, and how were they able to overcome them? Oh yeah, thanks, David. Have to get rid of that question now.
Well, I love that. I love that question, David. Thank you. Biggest challenges.
Mm,
Okay, so you're leading these programs, you're training them in a certain way, and they're leaders. aren't buying into it necessarily, right? They're still
Mhm.
asking what we call old questions. I'm trying to train you how many leads or how many prospects did you find? How many new connections did you make? How much content are you getting out? Meanwhile, their leaders could be saying, how many phone calls did you make? How many emails did you send? So there's not a good synergy there yet.
Mm.
And have we overcome it? Absolutely not. I mean, I think it is
Mm.
one of the things that we are constantly striving for. I do manager training, for instance. So if I'm seeing, okay, the managers aren't asking the right questions, how can I position this to them that by asking these new questions, you're going to have better capabilities of building pipeline. And if I have 10 in the room, maybe I win 2 over, and then in another month or so I do it again and I win another 2 over. And meanwhile I'm trying to gather case studies of
Yep.
reps that have succeeded that I can hold up and show to them how this is working, how we say it's going to work.
Yeah. Well, so that's I think you've hit on a really important point there, and I think a lot of program managers are starting to realize that, because if you don't engage sales managers in the process, you're trying to convert and change the behaviors when the behaviors are being reinforced in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned something there about capturing case studies and success stories.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like for Quest
Well,
software?
that's
What does a success story look
at
like?
Quest. I've got a couple of people, but this has always been a part of my strategy. Find some rock stars, the people
Yeah.
that seem like they are more open to trying something new, and then mentor them. Now, that's not
Mm-hmm.
scalable, right? You can't
No.
scale mentoring, but you focus on mentoring maybe 4 or 5 people, getting them through the process, and then show that success. Now you've built your case studies of the success of your program to hold up in front of other teams.
Yeah.
It's pretty much that simple.
But what sort of things are they? Is it quantifiable success stories? Is it booking a meeting with a new account that you've been trying to access? What do they look like generally?
It looks like all of that. I remember last year I was mentoring a particular rep on, they were very new to being on social, right? That this was a new phenomenon to them and how this would work. And so they relied a lot on emails. So I'd have to kind of pull them back over to social. Let's go into our sales navigator. Let's find out more information. Now let's craft the right kind of email before you send it out.
Yeah.
So, and offering again that social proof. I've been watching your profile. I see the stuff you're posting. So kind of combining the methodologies together. And
Okay.
then,
Yeah.
they send me messages on Teams. I mean,
Oh,
I literally have a deck. My boss told me to keep this deck. And it was such a good idea that every time somebody like sends me a Teams message that says, "Oh my gosh, I got a meeting off of this prospect because of what you taught me," I keep that, and those go on the screen in my presentations in the future.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you've got to, because I think that the ROI of social selling is a tricky one, because a lot of people talk about this. It's like, well, I do this, I get that, but it's not as simple as that. It's a behavior
No.
change. It's capturing all those little qualitative points. That's the way to do it. David's got a follow-up question. Did that require a lot of hand holding, overcoming the challenges with the sales managers, as in one-on-ones? Oh, with the participants. Oh, sorry. So you're talking about the mentoring and the coaching.
I offer one-on-one. I mean, they can book time with me. I will always take the time to spend one-on-one time with somebody,
Yeah.
because that shows their interest. And if they're
Yeah.
interested, they're more likely to adapt, do the change, and then see the results. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'll do a lot of hand holding.
But I think that you're right. It's not scalable, but what you're doing is you're not offering that to everybody. You're offering it to the people that are showing progress, showing interest, so it's about targeting. I always say it's like you need to target your high touch, high cost service offerings
Right.
one-to-one
Yeah.
with your most advanced or most keen ambassadors, trusted advisors, salespeople, whatever you want to call them. But you wouldn't give that to someone who's starting out at the lowest levels of LinkedIn. They haven't got a profile, or they don't maintain it. Or how do you enable the masses then, Sandy? Because you can't train everyone on update your profile. Here's how to network. David,
I can actually, and I do.
Okay.
I run quarterly classes on how to optimize your LinkedIn profile. Now, it's also built into our new hire training. So I have a 1-hour session for new hire that is an introduction to social selling. We talk about the why behind it. We talk about the profile. I put in my pitch that we're not going to go all the way in, but we do have these trainings available, and I'm always open for a one-on-one. Now, I'm not getting inundated with hundreds of people, so David, don't worry about that. And I'm not interested in really scaling that part of it. I'm more interested in scaling the activities I want them to take. That I like giving them a personal touch. It builds a relationship with me. It builds their trust in me that I'm giving them the right advice, and they are more likely to then follow subsequent advice I give.
Yeah. I love that you're integrated into the new hire onboarding process. I think that's a great shout. And before we came on air, you talked about sales kickoff as well. So you have you're woven into the sales processes, aren't you? It
Very
sounds
much
to me
so.
like you're very much integrated into where they are already at, rather than showing up as can you do this on top? So
Correct. Yeah. I mean, that's like 100% of my focus is working with the sales team. I tell them all the time, your success is my success. So,
yeah. Well, actually, that leads me to the next question, actually, which is a leadership report. I've actually printed it off. If you've not found this is, hold on, there you go. Sales Enablement Report from Gartner. Leadership vision. It's a fairly new one, isn't it? It's only came out late last year, I think. 40% of sellers are very reluctant to change how they work. So I was going to say, do you agree with that stat?
and I don't think I do. I mean, maybe I do.
Isn't it?
Maybe I do in a weird sort of way. I mean, I don't know whether it's the sellers who are reluctant, or that they're just not really given permission to try a different approach. As I was just saying before, it often comes down to the leader of the team. If a rep is working really hard on building their presence on LinkedIn and making new connections and discovering new companies through Sales Navigator, but their boss is asking how many calls, how many emails, well, that could have a serious impact on a rep backtracking to older methodologies, and that in itself would make the 40% seem reluctant, because if I'm not being measured on that, why do I want to do that?
I remember going to a Forrester event a couple of years ago, and they presented some data which showed sales teams, the amount of time that they actually spend selling is like 30% or something. They've got so much time.
I feel like it's
admin, CRM. Yeah. I think it was 30%. I'll dig it out. But I remember thinking this is very low. And actually sales are quite frustrated because they're doing a lot of administration work, a lot of forecast calls, a lot of this is where we're at with this opportunity. And actually it's less than 50% of their time is actually spent selling. Which
is an interesting conversation that I've had with other people on the team, where their attitude on that is, well, that's what your base pay covers, doing all that admin and that other stuff, and then commission is what you earn on the sale, right? So we can't fully eliminate the administrative work that sales reps need to do. I mean, how would you get that information? Maybe AI will change it all. We'll
ding, ding. I'm going to get a bell. And when AI comes up, I'm going to go and I'm going to see how long it takes.
Yeah.
You're right. Right. I'm going to go down this rabbit hole. You brought it up, Sally.
Okay.
Let's go. Oh, hold on a second. I'm coming back to AI because I think you're right. And that's where Forrester was going with this conversation, is how it's going to streamline integration into sales nav, integration into, CRM system. We're going to come back to that. Right. Have you seen success in scaling social selling for roles outside of sales in IT tech companies?
Oh, absolutely.
And if so,
Pre-sales and renewals.
oh, there you go.
Absolutely.
Pre-sale.
The
Right.
pre-sales team, for us anyway, they are subject matter experts. They call them solution architects. They're pre-sales engineering. So they
Yeah.
really have the meat and potatoes of the products. And so getting them out on social, they're writing blogs, sure, for marketing, and we're pushing their blogs, but getting them comfortable with this and getting them to even, I worked with somebody yesterday, as a matter of fact. The rep was asking for help in setting up his sales navigator list for different accounts he was going into. And I was showing them lead filters. And I said, and he had his pre-sales engineer on the call with us. And I said, now go share that list with him. And he can start building some of those relationships as well. Renewals, people change jobs. We just went through the Great Resignation, right? Layoffs are happening. People are changing jobs all the time. Renewals is in a particular position where the person that's on the contract in your CRM may have left the company and now they're dead in the water. So teaching renewals team how to map out the accounts and then start building relationships can be very effective.
Yeah, I love that. On the pre-sales, solution engineering, value engineer, those solution consultants, how do you, because in my experience, there's a bit of reluctance there. These are very busy people. Customers love them. They have deep technical knowledge. And it can be quite difficult there's a bit of reluctance there to get on social and, I haven't got time for that. The knowledge is in here. This is why people work with me. How do you see that reluctance or,
Not as much as I used to.
Okay.
I hope none of my engineers are listening because I'm going to say this. I think there's a little ego involved. They're very proud of the fact that they are experts and they have something to give. They're more than willing to be on stage. And as soon as you start to show them, well, here's what you're doing when you go to a conference and you're on stage, grab a couple of pictures, throw them up on LinkedIn, write a few articles, take your blog, rewrite. And if you make it easy for them, I don't think I get as much pushback as I used to, as long as I'm making it easy for them.
No, that's really good, actually, because that, in my experience, they have been quite a skeptical audience because they don't have time, first and foremost, and they do have a lot of deep knowledge, and sharing that is almost a little bit devaluing for their role. But actually, sharing it can connect them to so many more people, and when they start to see that value, it just becomes, okay, why haven't I done this sooner?
Yeah, and the reality is that we're all busy.
Yeah.
I've got meetings from now until 5:00 today. It's a full day, but I still have to okay, make sure I get this done. And I teach them time blocking. Put it on your calendar. If you don't put it on your calendar on Monday morning to go and share a couple of things, it's not going to happen. So again, as the easier you can make it for somebody who is extremely busy, the more likely they are to participate in it.
So that's an interesting thing. You brought up time blocking there, going off script again. Because one of the things that we notice is about building habits, little habits, and embedding habits. So have you got any other tips that you introduce to your teams around that? Baby steps, do it, reinforce it, move to something else.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because when I think of, for instance, with the advocacy, turning them into ambassadors and putting them out there, I use the analogy of I'm teaching you to ride a bike. I am your training wheels.
Okay.
The platform is the training wheels for you to understand. Oh, and then get rid of the fear. Oh, this is easier than I thought. I can just share an article and say what I thought about it.
Ah,
Right.
yeah.
So, baby steps. I mean, you can only go baby steps. That's actually one of my pet peeve words. Baby steps.
Yeah.
It's like, put on your big boy pants. Let's go. um, it just depends on the person too. And you have to understand personalities, um, and what they might react best to, so that you know how to guide them and train them. And again, put it down on paper. I still go back to, if I write it down on a piece of paper with a pen, it sticks.
It
Where if I'm
happens.
just typing notes, as soon as I shut Word off, I've forgotten what I said. But if I'm writing it down, it seems to stick with me. So write
Yeah.
down your goals for the week or for the
Mhm.
quarter. If you can't handle a day-to-day, put something together where you can schedule content or schedule a blog out, um, every other week. It's just consistency, building consistency.
Yeah. I'm going to come back to the AI thing, seeing as you brought it up, Sandy. So, how do you think AI is impacting social selling in your view?
Well, number one, huge topic. Everybody's curious about it. So why not be posting content about it to get more attention and get people to understand it? That's a key thing. How is it going to change it? I mean, it's already there. I mean, you can notice even when you're on LinkedIn and you go to create a post, they want you to ask AI and do certain things.
Which is not very good, actually. Have you tested that? Because
I
it's not
have, and
very
it's
good. Yeah,
not.
it's not.
But
No.
but it, but okay. So here's back in the day. Yeah, back in the day, what Facebook was so freaking fabulous at was training people in the world to log on to something all the time, to look
Mhm.
for things, right? I mean, capturing attention. And even like I don't know if you follow Gary Vaynerchuk, he's talking
Oh,
about
yeah.
day trading attention. That's one of those biggest things. So AI, I think, is going to help with that. I mean, there's opportunity for, sales are going to run into questions like, does your product have AI built into it? And if so, what
Yeah.
does it do? And so now you have to educate your workforce on AI. A lot of companies, I think, will try to pull the blinders down and say, okay, it's not happening yet. We're not going to worry about it. But I like to get in front of the tech, and
Yeah.
let's start having that conversation. I was saying earlier at sales kickoff, my session is called How AI Influences Social Selling.
Mm.
That's my hook, right? That's how I'm going
Yeah.
to get them in the audience, because they're going to be like, ooh, AI? Okay.
Yeah. Have you written that then? Can you give us a brief?
No, but be happy to catch you up after I present it.
Do you know what I think as well? AI integrated into tools. I mean, we're seeing this happening all the time. We've just taken it. We just before we came on air, we talked about Copilot in Microsoft. Wow. Wow, wow. I mean, I saw it last year and I was wowed, and now we're starting to test it, which is amazing. But
Mhm.
even in platforms like Sales Navigator, you've got Account IQ, which is pretty cool. We're gonna start feeling it. Felipe on our team said this. You're gonna start feeling AI embedded into experiences that we live every day already. Rather
Yeah.
than let's go to ChatGPT, you're going to feel AI integrated into platforms, processes, tools. We're seeing some really smart applications of AI with outreaches. So really understanding what are the top 3 issues that this target audience in this industry has, and now
Mhm.
write me an email, no more than 200 characters. You know what I mean? It's like really clever,
Well,
really
and I
clever.
don't know how it is in the UK, but at our company, like, we all get a laptop, right?
Hmm.
And in that laptop, it's Microsoft, it's Edge, it's Bing, and it's all right there. I mean, the company doesn't even have to turn anything on. It's all right there already. So
Yeah.
you have to make a decision. Am I going to just, like I said, pretend it doesn't exist and like, let's not talk about this? Or are you going to prepare your workforce for what is coming? I think,
Mm.
again, I think that was Gartner that said by 2028, 68% of sales will be, and I don't remember if the word was automated or
Wow.
replacing tasks of the traditional sales model. So,
Yeah.
so prepare in advance. I always like I said, I like to be ahead of the game as
Mm.
opposed to playing catch up.
Yeah, it's not a good place to be, is it? And I know today is not about employee advocacy, but it's really interesting to see how employees will jump onto this as a quick content creation tool, and that presents its own risks. That you mentioned earlier, you've got to educate your employees around AI, what you can do, what you can't. Can we talk a little bit about Sales Navigator? Do you guys use Sales Navigator?
Yeah.
What's your experience of the tool at Quest, and how do you use it? How do you
Okay.
mainly use
Well,
it?
let me just give some history here.
Yeah.
I was when again back in if this was 2014, Sales Navigator was just coming out.
Mm-hmm.
We got the tool at the company I was working at, and by 2015, our company made their list of top 50 influencers in social selling. And I was invited to go speak at LinkedIn Sales Solutions to talk about my program. Met some really great people through that. And I have spent like every single day of my career since then in that tool. And even, when I talk with my customer success manager, they're like, the tool better than we do. So that being said, my experience with it is great tool. I still have things I want
Yeah.
that, make product suggestions constantly, or why can't you do this? And lead filters is my favorite. I mean, all these new changes they made to lead filters.
Yes.
Um, it just goes along hand in hand with the kind of training I do as well. So oftentimes you'll see reps will say that up into one list. And I'm like, now how are you going to manage 200
Mm.
companies in one list? And how are you going to find people? You need to segment it. And so I do training on that, right? This is how you segment your list, pick a strategy. I like to segment by verticals.
Yep.
And then I explain why. And what it's going to get for me, which is if marketing comes out with a really good case study in manufacturing, and I've got a vertical list of manufacturing, I now have relevant content to the right people to get out there.
Yeah.
Okay. But I love the lead filters. Account IQ is interesting so far. I mean, I like
Mm.
it. I'm using it as a teaching point. You have to be able to read, right? Read between the lines. If, for instance, I was looking at a company the other day for my demo, and I said, okay, right in here, they're using words value add. They like to provide value added service to their customers. So my salesperson should be able to see that. It should trigger, oh, I'm going to have a value-based conversation with this person,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
So I do like Account IQ. I know it's in beta. It's got some limitations for smaller companies. So, but we happen to go to pretty large companies, so it's not been much of an issue at all. I'm liking it.
Mm.
I'm liking all the changes I'm seeing.
Yeah, which also can be overwhelming, right? Because if there's a lot for salespeople. It's hard enough just to learn how to use the platform, and then to use all the functionality to know how to apply it can also be quite confusing.
I
Do you
can't tell
do?
you how many times I've logged in and thought, now where did they move that
Yeah,
to?
I know. I know. I'm the same. I'm like, hold on a minute. That was down here before. I tell you, some other ones I really love, the personas. That saves me a ton of time.
Mhm.
If salespeople don't have those set up, you need to set those up, because you can just go
Absolutely.
apply persona, and then ka-ching, everybody's up in front of you. So
And now this pulls us right back to AI.
yes, yeah,
How are you going to tell the AI in Sales Navigator what you want if you don't tell them what you want? So
yeah, yeah.
personas is a perfect example of
Personas is good.
educating.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was another one I was going to say as well, which I love. Buyer intent. And this is where I think marketing, coming back to that question we were talking about earlier about departments and functions,
Mhm.
for me, it's all about digital signals and intent,
Mhm.
and when you're looking, especially on net new, looking at the intent signals from Sixth Sense and all those amazing tools out there, that's great, right? That shows you intent signals on the internet.
Yep.
But what about your intent signals within your relationships to that account? And that's
Yep.
where the buyer intent on Sales Nav comes in, which I think is
Yep.
cool. Yeah. Right. Oh my gosh, look at the time. Oh, okay. Right.
my
I'm going to
goodness.
wrap it up. This is really good. Sandy, I knew this was going to be fun. Oh, yeah. Look at this. I found this stat. Well, Donna found this stat. Businesses prioritizing social selling are 51% more likely to reach their sales quotas. That's from, I mean, LinkedIn would say that, but that's a really good stat, isn't it? That's
It is. It
very
is. And
cool.
I certainly, when you talk about ROI of your programs, especially if you've got it synced to your CRM and your Microsoft will deliver you, here's how much revenue Sales
Yeah.
Navigator is influencing. And it's
Yeah.
pretty hard to deny when you see that, that it's not, I couldn't imagine any company saying this isn't a valuable tool, let's get rid of it. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. Otherwise, you're going to have to give them suit or briefcases and send them door to door. You've got to be on social selling.
Yeah. Sandy, this is brilliant, actually. I was going to ask you about the ROI, but it sounds like you've got that integration. So the data is sort of served up to you, is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect.
I wish I could look at it
Yeah.
myself, but right now it's, I have to ask for that data, and I do a quarterly business review, and that quarterly business review is not only shared with my boss, but her boss. And then I do share it with other executives. Whether they read it, I couldn't say for sure, but it's not like
Yeah.
anybody's really come back and asked many questions. So
Yeah, some of the insights and the data that you can get is superb. It really is. So thank you, Sandy.
thank
Thank you so
you.
much for spending a bit of time. I knew this would be a good chat. It's been a while, isn't it, since we've done one of these? So it was
Yeah,
good to catch up and see what was
absolutely.
going on. And thank you for talking about social selling and how you scale it at Quest and your story. What do you think the future is then, Sandy? Have you got any crystal ball forecasts for the future of social selling, apart from AI, which we've covered?
Oh boy, that's a really good question. I think statistically right now we went from only 1% of people were posting on LinkedIn. There's been this massive flood into the ecosphere here. And now I think I just saw a recent number of like 9% of people. I think it's going to get noisy and crowded. And you better
Okay.
be building your following and doing it now so you are firmly planted. I don't
Yeah.
have a crystal ball. I don't know where it's going.
I think the integration of systems, I think the application of AI, I just see it getting really smart and process driven and efficient for those top social sellers. They're just going to even climb. Anybody who's just learning this is going to have to get on it quickly. Otherwise you're going to miss
And
out.
who knows what Microsoft has in mind? I mean, we
Ooh,
have like Salesforce, and there's
yeah.
our Sales Navigator widget built into it that'll show the profile of the person. But I think there's a lot more room there for
Yeah.
innovations, and that'll rely on Salesforce and Microsoft. And then we, as the end users of their products, will roll it out for them.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you, Sandy. And thanks, Ryan, for adding that Gartner report into the thing. So go download it there. It's really worth it. All about sales enablement, some of the trends that are coming up. So yeah, pop those in. And thank you for those. Thank you, David, for your questions. And I think Chloe as well. We are back, I think, in 3 weeks. So we've got a little bit of a gap then. How to leverage social media for sales. So yeah, so
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. So, we've got some brilliant ones coming up. I'm so excited. Anyway, have a good one, Sandy. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And thanks for those on the podcast for listening. All
Don't
right.
forget to connect.
Yeah. Connect with Sandy. Make sure you do that. All right. Thank you, guys.